Hi everyone. Now we are going to discuss about microbial metabolism or respiration. So as we all know that metabolism is a sum of all chemical transformations that are taking place in a living cell. So the same metabolism or the chemical transformations that are taking place in a microbial cell we are going to discuss in detail. Okay, so let's begin. So, as I told you, metabolism is the sum of all chemical transformations taking place in a living cell. So, and these all chemical transformations are occurring through a series of enzymes, catalyzed reactions. So, that's why we call these metabolic activities or metabolic reactions as metabolic pathways. And each step in this pathway brings specific small chemical change like either removal or transfer or addition of a particular atom or functional group. For example, the conversion of glucose into glucose 6 phosphate is going to have an addition of just a phosphate group at the sixth position. So that comes the just a specific small change is going to occur. Okay. Then the metabolites or the small molecules that are going to be intermediate formed during the biosynthesis of these polymers. So as we know that metabolism is going to be of these all chemical transformations occurring through a series of enzyme catalyzed reactions, and each substrate is going to be considered as a metabolite. And basically, this metabolism is going to be considered as a two separate process, namely catabolism and anabolism. So, what is a catabolism? What is an anabolism? The catabolism is a process in which the nutrient molecules like proteins, fats, carbohydrates are degraded into simple molecules like water, carbon dioxide, ammonia, etc. And in this process, the energy is going to be released, and some of the energy is going to be conserved in the form of ATP, and some other are going to be used as electron carriers like NADH2, NADPH2 and FADH2, and the rest of whatever the energy is released is going to be lost as a heat. So where you are going to have the release of energy by breaking down the larger molecules and giving rise to the small molecules, that is going to be called as catabolism. Okay, then what is an anabolism? In the anabolism, the small simple precursor molecules are built into a large complex molecules like proteins, lipids, carbohydrates and nucleic acids. But putting together requires some energy. So obviously the anabolism is going to be requiring the energy either in the form of ATP or NADPH or NADH2 or FADH2. So these two are vice versa. One is going to be broke down and releasing the energy, and another one is going to be built up. So if you want to build up anything, obviously you require some sort of energy. So that is going to be anabolism. And in this respiration topic, this catabolism is the area where we are going to discuss. Okay, so let's come with this one, that is respiration. As I told you, the respiration is a catabolic mechanism during which energy is conserved with the involvement of molecular oxygen or some other externally derived electron acceptor. So that's how we are going to have aerobic respiration if oxygen is required. If other than oxygen, then we call it as anaerobic respiration. So we will discuss all these things in detail. So depending upon the nature of electron acceptors, there are three types of energy generation metabolic pathways are identified in microorganisms, that is aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration and fermentation. Sometimes this fermentation also going to be considered as an anaerobic respiration only. But regarding the microorganism, we have to have a special importance in the form of fermentation. Okay, so let's begin this respiration. So as I told you, aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration and fermentation. What is an aerobic respiration? So when molecular oxygen serves as a terminal acceptor, The metabolic pathway is known as aerobic respiration. So here you can see the glycolysis where the oxygen is required as an electron acceptor for the process of this conversion of glycolysis and releasing the ATP. Okay, so this pathway begins with an organic substance or a substrate molecule and combines with the oxygen in an oxidation reduction process that ends the formation of our carbon dioxide and water molecule along with the generation of ATP, and that's how this is going to be called as aerobic respiration. Then what is an anaerobic respiration? The respiration in which an inorganic molecule, that is other than our oxygen like sulfate, nitrate, carbonate, serves as a terminal electron acceptor. So here you can see serves as a terminal acceptor, then that the kind of respiration is called as anaerobic respiration. Then what is a fermentation? Some bacteria and some sort of yeast use an organic molecule. So here again organic molecule as the electron acceptor, and this type of respiration is a fermentative respiration, and this is going to yield very little amount of energy when compared to the aerobic and the anaerobic respiration. So this is what I explained all the things here in the aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration and the fermentation. So we will begin with the aerobic respiration, and in a separate part we had gone through the anaerobic respiration and then we'll go with the fermentation. So let's begin with the aerobic respiration. So what I told you about the aerobic respiration, when molecular oxygen is the terminal electron acceptor, then that metabolic pathway is known as aerobic respiration. And this aerobic respiration is a molecular process by which cells consume oxygen and produces what? Carbon dioxide and water along with the ATP. That means ATP is going to be generated in this process. So aerobic respiration is going to occur in three stages. How many stages? Three stages. What are those? Glycolysis, citric acid cycle or tricarboxylic acid cycle, electron transport chain. Okay, so it is going to, that means the aerobic respiration, the conversion of a glucose molecule into the form of carbon dioxide, water and generation of ATP is going to take place in three stages. What are those three stages? Glycolysis, citric acid cycle and then electron transport chain. So here comes the total aerobic respiration. So this is the first stage of glycolysis where the organic fuel like glucose is going to be converted into the two fragments of acetyl CoA, and then it is going to be of entering into the Krebs cycle. So here I may show you the pyruvic acid, but this pyruvic acid have to enter into the carboxylic form only in the form of a two carbon fragments called as acetyl CoA enzyme. So don't bother, we will discuss in detail about all these things one by one. In the second stage, that is the TCA cycle or tricarboxylic acid cycle, the acetyl CoA is oxidized to carbon dioxide via the citric acid cycle, and the energy is going to be released by the oxidation is conserved in the form of reduced electron carriers called as NADH2 and FADH2, and also in the form of ATP. Then the third stage is going to be recorded as coenzymes or oxidized themselves, that is our NADH2, FADH2, or oxidized by themselves by electron transport chain. In this electron transport chain system, large amount of energy is released, which is conserved in the form of ATP by a process called as oxidative phosphorylation. Okay, so that's all. There are three stages in which the aerobic respiration is going to occur. One is the glycolysis, where the glucose is going to be converted into pyruvic acid, and this pyruvic acid have to be converted into the acetyl CoA, which enters into the second stage, that is the citric acid cycle. And whatever the reduced electron carriers like NADH2, FADH2 are there, and they have to enter through the electron transport chain, and where the maximum of the ATP is going to be generated. along with the carbon dioxide and the water. And coming to the glycolysis, what is the glycolysis? Glycolysis is the first phase of aerobic respiration. So this is what we have discussed, isn't it? So it's the first phase of aerobic respiration during which the organic molecule is partially oxidized to smaller molecules along with the ATP generation and reduced coenzymes. Suppose if your substrate molecule is glucose, it is initially broke down to pyruvate, and then microorganism employs several metabolic pathways to catabolize glucose and other sugars. So generally, in eukaryotic organisms, we are going to have the glucose, and that is going to be broken down to pyruvate only by one method, that is glycolysis or by HMP pathway. But the microorganisms are going to employ the several metabolic pathways to catabolize the glucose and other sugars. So there are three important routes of breakdown of glucose to pyruvate. So what are those three? EMP pathway, HMP pathway and ED pathway. EMP means embedded Mayer-Half Parnas pathway. HMP means hexose monophosphate pathway, which is also called as pentose phosphate pathway. And ED pathway is a special type of the pathway that occurs only in the microorganisms. The ED means enter-Diodoff pathway. So we will discuss all these pathways in different parts. Okay, so let's have a glance of these all pathways, and individually we will discuss all these pathways in different parts. So here is the overall ways of glucose breakdown by the bacteria. So one, as I told you, is the EMP pathway, and the HMP pathway, pentose phosphate pathway, and then enter-Diodoff pathway. So out of all these things, from the EMP you are going to have the yields of 2 ATP, and in the phosphate, that is pentose phosphate pathway, you are going to have the release of 5 carbon sugars along with the NADPH, which is very important in the synthesis of nucleic acids, all those things that we'll discuss in detail. Then coming to enter-Diodoff pathway, where it yields only 1 ATP. Okay, but only used by aerobes such as pseudomonas, which may many ATP through the aerobic respiration. So this is how you are going to, whatever the EMP, pentose or enter-Diodoff, all are going to have the initial compound as a glucose, and they are going to follow the different pathways to give rise to the final compound called as pyruvic acid. So this is the overall EMP pathway where the glucose is going to give rise to the pyruvate. Then this is the ED pathway. So here also the initial compound is the glucose and final compound is the pyruvate. But the process of lysis of this glucose is going to be different because of having the different enzymes. Okay, then this is a HMP pathway, that is hexose monophosphate pathway, where it is also going to have the different pathway in breakdown of the glucose into the different compounds. So this is how, this is all an introduction of microbial metabolism, and we will discuss all these aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration and fermentation in different parts. And the aerobic respiration also, we are having the three stages, that is your glycolysis, then TCA cycle, then you are going to have the electron transport chain. So these all in detail we will discuss in different parts. Okay, thank you.